the industry didn't break me, but the men I dated did. Because the men I dated were also pursuing the arts and, also pursuing performing and making it. And I'm not a competitive person at the fuck all. And I didn't understand some of their behaviors because it just didn't make sense to me. It just wasn't logical. But I was just like, okay, that's just how he is, But it was like to be unsupported and to be like treated like shit or talked down to or made to feel like my material or my performance was not great or good at or worth anything. Those men, I think, did more damage to me than the actual industry itself, because the industry itself, it's like it's so cut and dry. Like it's so like you need to look like this and you need to act like this and you need to write like this, and if you can't follow these directions, then we probably won't work with you.
I'm Charla Lauriston, a stand-up comedian, writer, director, and producer, and this is the Working Writer Podcast, where screenwriters, creatives, and industry insiders share their stories of breaking in hopes that it helps you along your path. I'm so excited you could join us. If you like what you hear, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Without further ado, let's get to work. Welcome to another episode of the Working Writer Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. My guest today is Marcella Arguello. She's an El Salvadorian American stand-up comedian, actor, and writer, and she's been featured on Comedy Central shows like At Midnight and Corporate. Marcella recently released her half-hour comedy special on HBO called Bitch Grow Up. She's got a meditation album on Spotify called Motivational Monday Meditations with Marcella Arguello. And her all-female stand-up comedy show, Women Crush Wednesdays, recently played the Ford Theater in Los Angeles. Marcella is one of the funniest and lovably mean people I know, so it's no surprise that she basically bullied her way onto the show, but it was my pleasure to have her. We talk on the episode about her struggle to gain respect in the comedy community, falling in love for the first time, feeling out of place in the writer's room, and why she ultimately left the WGA. It's a fun episode, and I hope you enjoy it. Without further ado, here's my interview with Marcella Arguello. Marcella Arguello. Welcome to The Working Writer. Thank you for coming on the show. I'm excited to have you.
Bully you onto your show.
You did bully me, and it's something that I really want to talk about, but we'll get there.
Okay, cool.
Arguello is not a name that you see all the time.
That's true.
On stand-up lights. So where are you from? Where's that name from? What's your cultural background?
Wow. So I know the story is, I think there's either 4 or 5 Arguello brothers from Spain. Basically, the colonizer side was like, let's go colonize. And they went to different parts of the world and basically did what they had to do, as Spaniards do. And so there's a bunch of Arguellos, like there's some in Mexico, there's some in Central America.
Right.
My family's in Central America. And so in Nicaragua, that's where my grandfather is, the Arguello grandfather is from. And he has the Spaniard roots. And then my grandmother that he married was from El Salvador by way of Lebanon. Because there was a great migration from Lebanon to Central America in the late 1800s due to civil war. It's also like the classic, all the governments are bad over hundreds of thousands of years. And so that's why people are always moving and that nobody's like pure-blooded anything, because fucking these monsters ruin everybody's existence and they're forced to leave.
Right.
And so my mother, her side of the family is also half Spaniard and half indigenous. So my mother's mother, her grandmother, something like that. She was a curandera in El Salvador, which is like a healer, a witch doctor.
Very cool.
On some brujeria shit. And so it's like I have a lot of different things coming into one.
Yeah, you do. You do look sort of Lebanese.
I do.
That's
Once people hear that, they're like, there it is. I see it. They see it immediately.
There it is. Yeah. So no one has ever given me a history lesson about their name or their background when I ask them where they're from. Because
it's a privilege.
Yes, I'm genuinely interested in where people are from. And I don't know this much about my own history, which you've just put
Yeah,
me to
it's a
shame.
privilege to know your own
So
history.
why are you
Yeah.
like this? I love that that's your perspective, that it's a privilege to know your own history. You're always surprising me, Marcella. Anyway. Anyway.
I'm a smart, well-rounded bitch. What the fuck?
You're as smart as a bee. So why are you like this? How did you get interested in your history like this? Do you just come from a family that tells you your history?
Well, that, and I'm first generation, and maybe because I'm the youngest of my family, like I have the privilege to like enjoy my first generation experience. Like I think my oldest brother, because he actually crossed the 3 borders to be here, that his experience is a little more traumatized. And then my second brother, he also is like, they're just trying to survive. He has like the little darker tone of skin, so he was just trying to survive. My sister, same thing. She had the little caramel skin. And it's funny too, because my sister is like only has a little bit more color than me. But where we grew up in Modesto, it's like, no, you're so other when you're in a white Republican town, like they are very aware. I always try to explain to people like, when if you're not blonde hair, blue eyes, like white people like zero in, like Republicans and conservatives, they zero in on you, and they're just like, you're not us. So then you start posting up with the Asians and the other Latinos and the Black kids, and you just all commiserate with each other.
Right.
Because of that, it's like learning the history of my friends as a kid was interesting because everybody kind of doesn't know, but they kind of know. And my dad was always very much grinding it into us to like be proud to be Salvadorian, be proud to be American, be proud of those things. That's what you are, so you should be proud of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was always like kind of telling us some of the history, but like there's also just like the associations of with I have a distant uncle who I do not know. His name is Alexis Arguello. He was a boxer and like famous. Like if people are into boxing and they're usually older men, they know as soon as they see my last name, they're like, there was a boxer. I was like, yes, he is a distant uncle. And they're like, so he was also like vocally anti-government and then was murdered in Nicaragua because he was an elected official. But I say all that to say, like, there's so much history once I learn a little bit about like that, learning about him made me be like, wait a minute. So was all my family into the government or anti-government or like being elected officials or performers, because my dad's mom was a performer. She was a singer in El Salvador, like on the radio. She sang on the radio, which is like a fucking big deal over there. My dad was a touring performer in one of the like more well-known bands of El Salvador. And so it's like the history is there, just it's so close that it fully makes me intrigued to be like, how far back can you go? I was talking to my boyfriend's mom because I asked her like, because he makes music. And I was like, who in your family, made music and is musically inclined? And she goes, nobody. And I go, nobody? And she was like, yeah, nobody. And I was like, nobody or nobody could because your family was Black in Mississippi. Like, and they just couldn't and they were not allowed to. And it just made no sense. And they were trying to survive. I mean, there's so much rich history in like being a performer, being a writer, pursuing anything, even pursuing government spots. Like, there is so much history in that because you're not the first one, but you might be the first one, but realistically you're not,
I really love that because this is something that I always get annoyed with my own parents. Like whenever I ask them questions about my history, I don't know if it's like older immigrant, what it is, or if it is because they're just trying to survive. Like I came to the US when I was 4, but my parents were like in their 20s. My mother was in her early 20s. Like she was so young, just trying to survive with kids and being Black in Florida, which is, they got leprosy over there now. I just read that this morning. Oh my God.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do. So I'm just like, it must have been hard, but I always find that it does feel like there's a part of me that's missing because I don't know my history. And like, I'm like piecing together, where I'm from. And I don't know. I don't like that about my family, that we're not a storytelling family. We don't tell stories about the Lauristons or the Josephs and the people that I come from. And I can feel them, it's like, I feel like I sound like
Yeah.
a bruja. It's
But
like,
it's
but I feel
true.
like there are certain things that feel so innate to you that that this is coming from somewhere. And it's just like, I want to know
Yeah.
my history, but yeah. So
Yeah.
I love that you know that. So this tells me that this is why you're so confident. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
Let's talk about why you're a bully. So you bullied your way onto this podcast. And you've been a bully since I met you. But I love you, Marcella. You're like,
Been a bully since I was born.
you're truly just yourself, and I
Yeah.
always love and
Thank you.
appreciate that. So
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that because this
of course.
industry does not
Oh, they do
support
not.
people and women like me. So thank you for
No,
saying that.
which is why I think it's really important that you continue to stay exactly as you are,
I
and
could
for us to
cry,
see you
like,
be successful that way.
I'm in a strange spot in my head right now about all that stuff because we're on a double strike. And because I have to like continue to tour and tour and tour and tour, to make my money. So I appreciate you saying that. I had a comedian who told me that like I'm well respected by other comedians, and then I told another person who that comedian was, and she was like, "Oh, that's funny because he's not." So it's very nice of him to acknowledge that. And I love that, because it's so hard, I think, in this industry as stand-ups to be respected for being a stand-up.
Interesting. I do feel like you've been hustling for quite some time.
Yeah.
So what does that look like when you say you feel like it's hard to get respect as a stand-up, which I totally agree with, by the way.
Well, I mean, let's start with the fact that people automatically assume if you do comedy in New York, you're superior to other comedians. Like that's like a automatic, people across the board, not just like industry and other comedians, but also fans feel the same way. Like, oh, you from New York? Oh, you're a legit comedian, even though that's not how the shit works. These motherfuckers wasn't born in fucking New York.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they are also from Ohio, migrating, gentrifying, like making that city worse. It's like, why do you respect that person? It makes no fucking sense. And it's like, if you do comedy in California, you automatically get less respect because people assume you're just trying to be rich and famous. Like that's all they assume. They don't think that you want to actually like take comedy seriously. And it's like you have to jump that hurdle. And I feel like I jumped that hurdle a while ago, but it's still like I see it within the comedy community where even the industry thinks they need to go watch and learn about new talent in New York. And also TikTok has proven that's not true. There's plenty of talent everywhere, there always has been.
Yeah. It's the same thing in Canada. There's this I'm in Vancouver, and there is this sense that like well, first of all, they don't invest as much into their industry as America does. So there's that. There's just not as much to do. And then on top of that, they also favor people that come from the States.
Which is so stupid.
It's really stupid. There's a lot of really great talent here.
I mean, Deborah DiGiovanni is like, I wish that bitch should be famous, but also maybe that's not what she desires. But you know what I mean? Like she's so good at comedy. Like it's unreal.
So what did you mean when you said you were in your head about being confident and things like that?
Oh, I just recently dealt with a serious injury in my foot that I do not want to talk about, but it has really fucked with my head and my self-confidence. And I've never, ever in my life like had low self-esteem. And it's like fucking with my head that bad that I like have been dealing with bouts of low self-esteem. And it's not fun. I don't recommend it. I don't understand how people function with low self-esteem because I've never had it. And
wow,
so
it's
a journey.
How is this possible? Let's really delve deep into this. How is this possible?
Okay, so I'm the youngest of 4. Okay.
Okay.
So I loved getting attention, like loved being the center of attention, loved making everybody laugh, right? And like, and everyone in my family was fine with it, so it only made me feel better about it. And then when I actually vividly remember the first time I like performed in front of an audience that wasn't just like in the living room, was my kindergarten graduation. We did like a little like dance number, like stupid shit like the fucking and some other like do the twist. It was just like this little mix tape of like song segments, like popular songs. And I was like, my teacher was like, "Oh, you're very good, so we're going to put you front and center." And even told the other kids, if you are lost, just look at her, look at Marcella. And I loved it. And I was a English as a second language student. Like I was in kindergarten and like my English wasn't great. but I was fucking killing it. I was still, killing it in kindergarten. I was like graduating and like, but be in the front and center, even though like maybe you're not, your English isn't perfect, because that was such a big deal when we were kids.
Yeah.
We were very othered in our town, and like I had a kindergarten teacher who was like the whitest white woman you've ever seen, just like the cutest white woman. And she loved me and she was so supportive and she never treated me like shit. Unlike my sister, she did get that experience. Which is how it starts, right? It starts at 5 years old when you have a teacher getting you in trouble for speaking Spanish, is what happened to my sister. My sister got in trouble all the time for speaking Spanish. And I never got in trouble for speaking Spanish in my class because we just had two different teachers. And so it's like, that's the shit that really, like, that year was fucking so big for me. And I was 5 years old. And it made me want to be a teacher. She was such a great teacher, made me want to be a teacher. Like I wanted to be a teacher until I was about 20. And, and that little boost, like my first adult that is responsible and looks over me, that isn't my parents, is like, loves me, supports me, thinks I'm fucking fantastic just the way I am. Like every child should experience that,
Absolutely.
On top of the fact that I was already feeling great about myself,
Right. So this was like instilled since you were a child, basically.
Yeah. I've been hyper aware. And it was both negative and positive because like I also was a childhood bully. Like I bullied like the gay kids. I was a very homophobic Catholic little girl. Like there was some faults in, that's confidence, because I was very confident that these people were going straight to hell. So I was confident that I should make them feel like shit. Like, trust me, it wasn't all positive, and, with age, of course, you grow and you become a better person, I hope. And so, like I can look back and I can still see that that's where I absolutely fucked up as a youngster. But I also know where I did great as a youngster,
So this is really interesting because I feel like, one of my other friends who I love, we talked about like how Hollywood is a place where people come to heal, and how we're not saying that everyone that goes to Hollywood is, emotionally traumatized or broken, but there's a good population of people there that absolutely are looking for outside validation.
Sure.
And I find that if you go to Hollywood that way, it's 10 times as difficult because it's already difficult.
Absolutely.
You get a lot of rejection.
Absolutely.
You have to do a lot of like performing all the time. It can be really exhausting for people. So I'm wondering like what it looked like for you to come to Hollywood with all that confidence and all of that like self-love.
The industry didn't break me, but the men I dated did. Because the men I dated were also pursuing the arts and, also pursuing performing and making it. And I'm not a competitive person at the fuck all. And I didn't understand some of their behaviors because it just didn't make sense to me. It wasn't logical. But I was just like, okay, that's just how he is, But it was like to be unsupported and to be like treated like shit or talked down to or made to feel like my material or my performance was not great or good at or worth anything. Those men, I think, did more damage to me than the actual industry itself, because the industry itself, it's like, it's so cut and dry. Like, it's so like, you need to look like this and you need to act like this and you need to write like this. And if you can't follow these directions, then we probably won't work with you. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm not that thing, so I don't give a fuck, But when you have a guy that's like, oh, that material dude is really hacky. And, you start fucking questioning yourself because you're like, is it hacky? Like, is that a not good joke? And of course they were wrong. They were just dickheads who were like jealous or fucking insecure or whatever the fuck it was wrong with them. But that was the way to get in my head, because even with like, when people compliment my looks, it means nothing to me because I don't need that validation. Some people are like, you look pretty. I'm like, yeah, I know. Thank you. I don't know what to say. Like, I could care less. Like, but if you fucking tell me some shit about my material or my work or shit that I fucking have passion about, you might fuck with my head,
I feel like stand-ups feel a little bit more like, I feel personally as a stand-up, like I have more, I guess, confidence in the writer's room because I know that I have other places to express myself other than just the writer's room. Like I have the autonomy of stand-up, So do you see yourself as a writer primarily? Do you see yourself purely as a stand-up? Like, do you even define yourself in any of these ways?
I think like to define myself as a performer, and I'm really trying to re-navigate myself to redefine myself as just an entertainer, because I love performing, but I'm also realizing that like I actually like to entertain and I like to do things in different ways, and I don't want to just be the one thing. I mean, as much as I love stand up, I will forever be a stand up. That will always be a great skill set that I will always have. But I'm starting to realize that I'm like, no, I really, because of my foot, I realized
Okay.
I love dancing so much that it's actually the thing that sometimes keeps me going. And like if I'm having a bad day, fuck it, let's just go dancing, like and I can't do that. I don't have that outlet. And it made me realize how much I fucking give a fuck about like physical movement, not just
Yeah.
dancing, but like music and physical movement and like just that pure joy that comes from, vibing with that shit. It has made me be like, well, shit, maybe I want to like venture off into like doing some kind of music or some kind of performance or I watched a drag performance recently that made me be like, yeah, I could do a one-man show or one woman show of like all kinds of shit because I'm fucking so good at so many things and I know that I can do that and I just have never fully given the structure to because I was so caught up in being respected as a stand-up. But now that I'm respected as a
Ooh.
stand-up, I feel like I can do whatever the
Ooh.
fuck I want to.
Absolutely. And I love that. And you know what? I've already noticed that you've started branching out into other things. So you have a meditation
Yeah.
album, which is
Yeah.
something that I did not expect to see from you.
Yeah.
And it was really empowering and really like
Thank you.
beautiful, like loving, like it felt like a beautiful gift that you were giving to fans, like really hyping
That's what
people
I
up.
think too.
Yeah, like absolutely in your own voice.
Yeah.
So here's my thing with this, because it's like from the moment I met you, you're like known, not known, but like I almost was like, is this real Marcella or is this like
Oh
a
no, I
persona
lost
of
you.
being like,
What
no.
happened?
The meditation album is like really conflicting with the Marcella that I knew at the beginning when I first met you. Because
What
when
do
I
you
first
mean?
met you, let me tell you, when I first met you, I was just like, is this meanness a persona or is it like, what is
Oh,
happening?
sure. Sure.
And then, of course, as I got to know you, I was like, oh, you're just playing. You're just playing. Like, if anybody who's listening, who doesn't know Marcella Arguello, you have to go check out a show. She has a raging fan base. Anyway, I'll do this in the intro anyway. But point of the matter is, like, you have a persona of being mean. You make fun of the audience. You roast people.
Yeah, I can be pretty
You
brutal.
roast the comics on your show. She be mean as fuck. And I
Yeah.
remember I was just real sensitive when I first came to Hollywood. I was real sensitive. I
Oh.
really could not take criticism, and I was doing a lot of a lot of the things for the first time. And luckily, I'm someone who just like doesn't always make a judgment based off of the first meeting, because I'm just like, you never know.
Yeah, that's good.
But the more I got to know you, I was just like, yo, this is like, this kind of meanness takes a lot of confidence. And then to come out with a meditation album and for that shit to be like straight up soothing.
But it has meanness to it, but the
It
meditation album
does.
has
It
meanness
does.
to
It
it.
does. It's very
That's the
you. It's
twist.
very
It's
you.
very me.
So what's that persona about? Like, what are you doing? And why did you come out with a meditation
What do
album?
you mean?
You've
What do
softened a
you mean?
lot.
Like, what do you
You've
mean
softened a lot, Marcella.
I mean, no, I haven't softened a lot. You've gotten to know me better because
Interesting.
I've always been soft. People refuse to get to
Hmm.
know me. People refuse to just they do take that first interaction, and I'm on what planet are you fucking like you're 100% full self to the person that you first meet, like the first time you meet them. You're not. It's just not possible.
Have you been in a writer's room? I'm not sure if you've been in one.
Yeah.
Which one? For how long?
I've been in two. I mean, they were both pretty short. One was the drop the mic on
Okay.
TBS.
Yeah.
That was very much like that wasn't a classic writer's room. That was us just writing rap shit and fucking bouncing ideas off each other. And then the second one was a little more like legit was the Bill Nye Saves the World.
Okay.
That one was like legit. We all were like fucking working together, pairing off, like coming up with segments, and that was interesting. Um, why would you have a specific question for that?
Yeah, I wondered what that experience was like for you, because I feel like in the writer's room, you're with people all day. And, you know, if that's your personality, if that's how you interact with people, I wonder how it was in the writer's room.
I mean, when I work with men, they're usually fine with it. It's women who
Okay.
start getting a little there's pushback, of course, which I understand. That's why I like with women, I do try to take it more easy, which is the facts. Like, sorry, ladies. I know that's not like a very feminist thing to say, but like bitches don't love mean humor. That's just the reality. They just don't.
Maybe because men are mean to them all the time, and another meanness from another lady is just too much.
And that makes no sense to me. And that's what I fucking hate. Is that I know that if I was a man, people would fucking be sucking my dick every fucking chance they got. Because they would be so fucking turned on by this tall ass, fucking mixed ass, fucking mean, like fuck, man. It's so fucking annoying. That's what I don't like. I don't like when bitches do that. Like, okay, you'll take it from a man, but you won't take it from a bitch. That's interesting. That is fucking real sexism, bitch. You the real fucking misogynist ass problem. Let me be myself, bitch. Fuck.
All right. So why the meditation album? Why did you do it? I love it.
Wait.
Why
I
did
do
you
want to
do
tell
it?
you, I did have a
Tell
fucking
me.
big ass problem with the bitch and right in one of those writers' room.
I can see.
And
Yeah.
this bitch, because she was a little older, so she was so used to being the only woman in the room and having her fucking titties out and being all like, "Oh, I'm so funny, right? Because I'm a woman and I'm in here and I work so hard." And her fucking titties would be bouncing every time she talked to dudes. And I fucking hate that shit, that little fucking Jessica Rabbit bullshit that some bitches pull to get their way, which I don't have no titties, so maybe I'm just a hater. But also, I'm like, we're in a writer's room. That's fucking right, you know?
Yeah.
And we and her had problems. Like, it got to the point where we got into it. And I was like, bitch, I don't want to be your friend. Like, we're just coworkers. What is your issue with me? Like, why are you obsessed with me? Get the fuck away from me. I think we both ended up in tears because I was so fucking livid. Like, when I get really mad, I just cry because I'm just like, you
Yeah.
fucking people are just like, you cannot calm the fuck down.
So funny.
So with that, anger, you need meditation.
Yes.
You need it. But also, when you have the anger that I have, when you listen to meditation albums, they're so fucking stupid. You know,
Yeah.
like I hate inspirational quotes, like the basic shit, because I also feel like inspirational quotes are dangerous because they can inspire like someone like the most like down on their luck, most progressive, forward thinking woman, man, whatever. And like they can inspire that. And they can also inspire someone like Donald Trump. Like
Right.
like the same quote can inspire two terrible people. I mean, two different people, one who's terrible and one who's good. And that's fucking weird to me. So I very much wanted to make a meditation album that like people could just be like, nah, this is very specific and it's for a specific type of person.
Absolutely. Who did you specifically make it for? I think I know.
Myself.
But, yeah.
But I have homegirls who like, they always need a little kick in the butt sometimes, a little motivational talking, you know, like, you know, when you're down in your shit and you call your girls and you want to like, you know, you just know that someone's going to make you feel good. I'm that friend for a lot of bitches. And so I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I could like just make a cool meditation album for me and all my friends?
So you're in a new relationship and I want to ask you about it. And I'm going to ask you about it after the break. I'm quickly interrupting this episode to tell you about theworkingwriter.com. It's a resource I created for screenwriters and creative entrepreneurs that includes a blog, a course, and this podcast. Right now, when you sign up for the mailing list, you'll get my Get Repped mini course for free. I cover what agents and managers do, how to know when you're ready for a rep, and how to find the right rep for you. If you're working on breaking into TV, I hope it gives you some concrete steps to get to the next level in your journey. Go to theworkingwriter.com, that's WERKING, and sign up for the mailing list now to download the Get Repped mini course for free. Are you a screenwriter who's feeling stuck or lost or just wanting to take your career to the next level? Then you need to check out the Working Writer School. The Working Writer School is an online course and community I created that trains screenwriters to become creative entrepreneurs who can confidently navigate building a professional network, attract managers and agents, manage their personal finances, pitch a TV show, and consistently produce original work they're proud of. When you join with one of our flexible membership options, you'll get the course, plus live monthly virtual workshops with writers from Portlandia, American Dad, The Last OG, and more. Go to theworkingwriter.com/school and sign up today to get training, mentorship, and support from a community of writers just like you. Now, back to the episode. Marcella, I've noticed you've been on the gram with your new bae.
Okay.
And I want to
Fucking and
know.
sucking. We fucking and we sucking.
I was just going to ask you if you guys were fucking and sucking, so it's good to know. I'm just like, this is the first time that I've personally seen you on the gram.
Yes.
I love how this is the working writer. We're not
I
talking
know.
about that
You
at
really
all.
are just like, I want all the juicy gossip from Marcella.
I want all the tea. What's the tea with you and this bae?
You're first of all, your listeners are gonna hate this episode. They're like,
I
get
don't care.
to the industry shit. You're like, nah, we kicking it.
I'm actually really wondering if this relationship has changed you creatively in any way, because this is kind of what I mean by when I said that I feel like you softened a little bit. Not like your comedy is softer. I literally just mean overall, you just seem like chiller and like happy. I don't know.
I mean, look,
Yeah.
you're not wrong that, like I told you, those men fucked me up so bad that I did have like layers to fucking peel off, and I didn't even know, because it was just growing and growing and growing, because I have always wanted to be in like a very healthy relationship. I've always wanted to be in a partnership. I've always wanted to be with like a creative person. Like I've always known that would elevate me as a person. I always admired Beyonce and Jay-Z in that way. They elevated each other as artists, and it worked because they were both business minded people. I've admired that always. And I've always desired it. And so I would like pursue these fucking knuckleheads that would just treat me like shit, make me feel like shit, make my work feel like shit. And it was like, okay, let me end that. Let me find someone that's not going to be that way. And the problem is people present this fake persona, right? Going back to what I was saying earlier, it's like you never give your full self at first. It doesn't mean you're being fake. It just means you're presenting a certain version of yourself, right? But the problem when I was dating was the men were presenting fully a different person. Like they weren't putting a persona. It was like, like they were like, nah, this is who I wish I was. Is this fucking playboy motherfucker, right? Or whatever. Or like, I'm pretending to be a good guy. That shit, like, fuck, man, that really was fucking hard to deal with. And it was like, I remember even calling Lydia Popovich, great comedian, check her out. She called me. I mean, I called her because there was like one guy who like really fucking broke my heart to a point of like, I felt like I'm just going to give up. Like, I think I was like 35,
Aww.
36 maybe. And I was like, I don't know if I have it in me anymore to like keep resetting and keep being hopeful, like, and keep desiring a full healthy relationship. Like, I was like, I don't think it's in the cards for me, because going back to what you were saying, I've known myself since I was a little kid. Like I've had that confidence. Like it's not like I go into a relationship like I will never change for anybody. It's like I will always compromise if it makes sense in the relationship. But I was really dealing with like two-faced motherfuckers who were really beating me down, and it fucked me up. Like straight up, it fucked me up. And I remember calling Lydia, being like, "Okay, here's another one. Here's what happened. I don't know what the fuck to think or feel or do anymore. Like I really want to give up." And she had to give me this pep talk, going back to motivational shit you need from your friends sometimes. And I rarely need it from people, but I was like, I don't think I can move forward with men anymore. Like I don't know what even that means, or why, or how fucked up is this? And she was like, I'm gonna tell you something. She's like, of all my friends I know, I have never had a friend who's had as bad a luck as you when it comes to dating. And I don't know why that helped me, but it was that reality of like, right, I can't even, like, I keep trying. I used to, I should say, would pursue different types of dudes. Like I was like, not just like physically, but like personality wise. I was like, okay, I don't want to date a guy like that. So let me date a guy who maybe presents himself a little differently in whatever capacity that may be. And they always fucking played me and hurt me so bad. And it was because I always went in being like, this could really be something. Like I'm open. I want to be open to love. I want to be open to a relationship. I want to be open to something moving forward in a healthy way. And it just never fucking happened. And it really fucked me up. And you're right. Like I have changed in that, that shit has finally melted off, I think, and even when me and this dude were like at early stages, like sometimes we'd be fucking, and they say you carry trauma in your hips. Sometimes we'd be fucking, and I would just straight up start bawling, crying. And it was like, oh, like I'm processing some shit, because I've never fucked a man who is deeply in love with me. I realized that. Like, and the more I'm in a relationship with this person, it's like the more I realize just how fucked up all that old shit was. Like, it's really fucking clear as day now, as opposed to back then. It was like, was it me? Was it him? Was it us? I don't know. Maybe this, that, and I have fully like melted off some of that shit that was fucking making me like walk around with like fucking,
Right. Right.
What I will say is I was always soft. That's the reality. I've always been this person, but like these dudes were fucking adding shit on me. And you ask my friend Greg Edwards, who I've known since the beginning of my comedy, so 17 years. He's always been like, "Nah, Marcella's a softie. Nah, she's a softie." He's always the first person to tell people like, "Nah, she's a softie. She's always been a softie. Deep down, she's a softie." And it's true, I am. But again, people fucking put shit on me, Also, there's rumors that have gone around about me that I'm just like, people are so fucking sensitive that they really want to put shit on somebody just to like take out their insecurities. It's been a tough journey. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. I do think the friends that I have that have the armor are always the softest ones at heart. They're the
Yeah,
ones the guard up the most. So I get it. I'm very happy that you're in this new phase of life
me
where
too.
you're experiencing love, it sounds like, for the first time.
Yeah, for the very first time. Like I say it on the HBO special. It's like it's not the first time I'm in love, but it's the first time someone's in love with me back.
Yes. This is a very transformative experience to be loved. Yes.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
truly loved, like not loved, but like your mom loves you, not loved like your siblings love you, not loved like your homegirls love you. Like it's on a different level.
What does that look like to be truly loved, or at least for you?
For truly loved by a partner, you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, just like fucking let me be. Like love me as I am. Like it's the most simple shit. It really is. But like you said earlier, I'm strange to a lot of people, right? My confidence is strange to a lot of people. Some of how I talk is strange to a lot of people. And so to have someone that loves me the way that, everyone in my family, all my friends have known me forever, like to have that it's so nice because then you add sex on it and it's like,
Right.
ooh, that's so nice and deep in there.
I think you're an absolute beast, Marcella. Like
I
you have been
am.
running Women Crush Wednesdays since I was born in 1952. Now it's going to be at the Ford Theater, which looks nuts.
Yeah. I'm excited
Like,
about that.
yes. So you're an absolute
Yes.
beast. And first, I'm wondering how being loved has transformed you professionally and creatively. And I'm wondering, like, what is your secret, or I guess your motivation behind being such a giant beast, basically?
Well, so again, I've desired a creative partner. And the cool thing about having a creative partner and an artist as a partner is that like you're constantly creating and you're constantly eager to show each other what you're working on, and it kind of keeps it going and you're excited. Again, like those dudes, like I said earlier, it's like to send someone or to show someone that you did something and then for them to shit on it, it fucks with your head. So to have someone that's like, yeah, yeah, do that. And he is also like so good at experimenting and trying new shit. Like he loves to experiment and try new shit. And that has been so good for me because it's like, yeah, fuck it. Cause he was one of the reasons that I was even really able to do the album because he produced it. He made all that fucking music and it was cool. And that was like our first time working with each other. And it was so fucking cool to be like, wow, I get to like go like on a little Joshua Tree trip. Wow, Joshua Tree trip. I went on a Joshua Tree trip, was
Yeah.
able to write it off for work, because that's what we did. We worked, but we also happened to be fucking and sucking. And it was like, that's what you want, as an artist who wants to be with another artist. Like, that's what you want. And that's like the ideal scenario. That's like when I go back to Beyonce and Jay-Z, it's like, they fucking love working with each other and then fucking, and then going back and working with each other and then going to have a meal. And you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
God, that's so like, because I come from a creative family. Like it's being creative is easy for us. And so and when we're together, it's just, it's just fun. And to have a partner that fits in perfectly in that mentality is so nice.
I'm so happy for you.
Yeah, and how am I a beast? I just fucking am, bitch. That's how I was born. I
Right.
don't, and I'm just getting better with age.
So how'd this Ford Theater thing come to be? What is the like impetus for going so big? Because you don't see a comedy show there all the time.
No, you don't. I think it might be
Yeah.
their first stand-up show.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of bummed because the ticket sales aren't what I wish they were.
Hmm.
But what the fuck can you do? LA, everybody's, I don't know, broke. I'm excited though because it is going to be a jamming ass show no matter what. And but yeah, the women who are that work at the Ford, they love me. They love Women Crush Wednesdays, and I was like, what? Like one of them saw me open for Felipe Esparza many years ago, and they've come to Women Crush and they loved it, and they're like, what does Women Crush Wednesdays look like at the Ford? And we fucking talked it out, and they were super like, let's fucking do this. And I was like, hell yeah. Like, because also Women Crush Wednesdays was like on such a high, like a great trajectory. And then the pandemic happened. And it was like, okay, now everybody runs these shows with women, and it's almost like Women Crush Wednesdays got lost in the mix of it all. But it's still one of the fucking best shows because I fucking host it.
I'm happy to hear about how the Ford went down. I really hope
Mm-hmm.
that ticket sales, jump up at the last minute or something because I've
Me
been watching you
too.
promote it. So, like, yeah. And they have a huge Rolodex of people. So I hope they're promoting it with their email
Yeah.
lists and
Who
things like that.
knows?
Yeah. I don't know.
I give up.
Yeah.
I was really stressed about it last week, and then I took my nieces to see the Barbie movie, all 4 of my nieces to see the Barbie movie, and I was like, "This is what I love. Like, this is what matters. Like, I shouldn't be stressed out about some fucking ticket sales. Like, also, if it does bad, it does bad. Oh well, I move on. Like, what the fuck? What do I
It's
care?
going to be a fun show no matter what.
Yeah, it is gonna
Yeah.
be a
It'll be
fun
a
show.
fun show
Like,
no matter what. It's a
yes,
great
yeah.
lineup. I love the promos for it. It looks really cool. It's going to be fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and we have our first drag queen, Meatball, and I'm excited because Meatball is so good and so funny.
Oh, wow. All right. Well, fantastic. I love that.
Yeah.
So, what else are you working on?
I have an album coming out, a new album. It's called Mercury and Reggaeton, because it was one of the worst headlining weekends I've ever done. And we recorded it, and it was wild, and so we put together this album that I'm almost proud of. It was just such a bad weekend, and it just is, but it's like it's fun. There's stories in there. There's crowd work in there. It's very different from my first album. Very different from the special. And I'm very excited because that should be dropping pretty soon. I don't have a date yet, but it should be dropping. It's actually
Okay.
going to be streaming on Sirius XM on August 3rd, but I think this will come out after that, so it doesn't matter.
Very cool. Yeah, this will definitely come out after that. Why was it
Yeah.
the worst weekend ever?
It was like, okay, so my brother gave me a cold like the day before I had to leave. And then I didn't know this until I think the second night, but it was graduation weekend in Fort Collins. So hella people were out of town. Hella parents and grandparents were in town. And so that basically means that the audience was like teenagers or young 20s
That's really
who
funny.
are sitting in the audience with their parent or grandparent. And what was more funny about it was that sometimes the grandparent was really into the comedy and it made the kid uncomfortable. And sometimes it was the obvious, which is the grandparent or parent were uncomfortable, and it made the kid uncomfortable no matter what. And so that didn't help, which was a big hit on the ticket sales. So it was like kind of not as full as I was used to Fort Collins being, and I didn't realize why until after the first couple of shows. And then and it was also like Friday the 13th, and like the full moon was happening, and so like my friends were telling me that shit, and I was like, oh my god, I don't give a shit about that stuff. But also it was like, wow, all this shit is actually really building up. And it was also like, when dumb little shit happens that really like kind of sets you off a little bit. um Whatever it was, like the lift couldn't figure out where we were going, and then we had to fucking walk up a couple blocks with our luggage, and shit like that just like wears you down. It was like that kind of shit, comedy of errors. Every fucking second of that weekend was terrible.
Damn.
But the shows were pretty good, and we sliced it together, so it sounds very good.
How are you coming out with like both a special and an album? Like, is this coming out in the same year? I think this is coming out in the same year, no? Your special
Yeah.
came out this year.
Well, here's what's funny. So remember the audience was kind of whack. So I actually intended to record that material that's on the special. That was intended to be this album. And it went so bad, which now in hindsight, it was great because I was able to use all the solid material on the fucking
Hmm.
special, so it worked out in my favor. But in the moment, it didn't feel good to be like, all this material that I was dying to get rid of is bombing.
Hmm.
Like there are like it's really wild to have listened to the tapes that they sent me because I was like I could like literally watch the HBO special, one of the jokes like murder, and you could hear on the album it just fucking no one
Yeah.
laughing. And
Yeah.
it's just comedy is objective. We all know that, but it was like really painful to be like I'm dying to get rid of this material and I can't yet because it just bombed and we have to like put a makeshift album together, which we did. So these were recorded pretty close to each other. We just delayed putting out the album because of the special, but also the special kept getting pushed and pushed. So I wasn't sure when the shit was going to drop. So now the album is going to drop.
How are you writing so much material? Is it because you're touring all the time and it's easier to
Yeah,
write?
I'm trying yes, and also I'm trying to be better at getting rid of shit when it feels done because I think especially when you're a new comedian, I've been now doing it 17 years. I'm no longer new, but when you're new, you're so like this is the closer. This is the only closer. This is the closer that I have and it's going to last me quite a while and you are scared to get rid of it. At some point you get tired of saying it. It's
Yeah.
not as funny anymore or it's like if it has any semblance of like topical anything like you're fucked. Like get fucking rid of it. But when you're younger, you don't write as fast. Now I write much, much faster.
Right.
I'm also, because I'm performing less and experiencing life more, there's more to pull from.
How long does it take for you to get sick of something?
It depends. Sometimes I'll write a new joke. I'll say it once and it gets a huge laugh, and I'll try to do it again and again, and it just doesn't pop like that first time. And I'm like, all right, I recorded it. So I'm just going to, like, now you can just put shit online.
Yeah.
And I'll get rid of it. So it varies. There's some shit that I have that's like still I have a couple jokes in my material that's like years old because it's just a fun story that I like to tell
Hmm.
and it hasn't and I
Hmm.
haven't put it anywhere.
How much and how often are you writing, would you say?
I couldn't even quantify it.
Mm.
It varies. It just varies. Sometimes I'm like I fucking like you can't even stop it. It just comes. And sometimes you're just like, wow, I got to go do something so that I have something to write
Right.
about.
Do you have like a process? Is there a structure or is there just not?
No, there's not a structure. Sometimes I write jokes backwards. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know what this is, but this is definitely a punchline that I want to put somewhere. I'm just not sure where, you know? Or there's something happens and I'm like, that's really funny. Let me write it down and then revisit it when I get a chance, when it makes sense or it seems funny.
What's one thing or anything you wish you knew, like, I guess, when you were in that period of time with those boys shitting on your work, that you know now?
I wish I knew to get out of it faster. I wish that I had the stamina, the wherewithal, the the strength to be like, fuck this, like I definitely stayed in all that shit too long. Even if it was 2 months,
Yeah.
it was 2 months too long.
Right. Life is short. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's
Yes.
the best thing that you've learned through your career that you think everybody should know?
Oh, watch your mouth. I mean, god damn it. I don't
Oh,
follow that at
interesting.
all, but I do think that like young people, young women, um, because I'm from that era of like writing problematic tweets and as jokes and like treating Twitter like an open mic back in the day when I was an open micer, and that was all bad. Um, so it's like just be aware that even if like you're not saying something problematic, you also just kind of don't know how shit can be misconstrued. Just be aware of like the layers of what you're saying, which also helps you write faster if you know what the pushback is. You know, like if you know all the versions that someone's going to react to something you say, you are actually a better writer because you can kind of anticipate all that shit.
Damn. All right. Do you have anything else you want to say to the peeps out who are writing and performing?
I mean, I thought we were going to talk about writing more and shitting on the industry, but I mean, yeah, I guess
You know
I
what?
don't have.
I think writing is so much about the writer. That's how
Oh,
I
that's
feel.
true. That's
You know,
true.
so I really feel like when I do an episode, I'm really just trying to get to know the writer. So far, I've known everyone that's been on, you know.
Okay.
And I just feel like we get to know you more through your work, through getting to hear you and your
Sure.
stories about your family and things like that.
Sure.
Because I also feel like there's so many other resources to like learn how to write. I don't think I'm necessarily trying to teach people to learn how to write. I'm definitely trying to give people a sense of what the industry is like. And I also feel like because I was so not myself when I first got to the industry, because I was so insecure, I really, really just try to encourage people to be themselves and to get to know
Sure.
people. Like the fact that people feel like networking is like about, you know, using people or just like collecting people. It's just like, no, it's about actually getting to know people. It's about
Yeah.
actually getting to know other creatives and then seeing if anything happens with them, if they become your friends, if they become your collaborator, if they become your colleague, like whatever it becomes. But it's just like, I think it's really just a way to like have people get to know us.
Sure,
That's
sure,
really it.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also feel like I've also talked about the strike and how I feel like I'm glad that it's happening and you know it
Yeah.
sucks. So how do you feel about it?
I mean, it sucks, but like
Yeah.
it was inevitable. I mean, I think
Yeah.
what's funny is I think last year I stopped paying my union dues cuz I was like, "You know what? There's no money in this fucking writing shit and I don't want to get caught up in it anyways." And I think I'm just going to stop, you know, maybe being a part of the union because it's just so bad. Like that's what's wild about it them going on strike, right? Is I was like I gave up. Like I went on my own strikes since last year. Do you know what I mean? Because I
Yeah.
was like, there's no money in this. And I don't even
Yeah.
know if I believe in it anymore. And I also feel like if like I also started realizing like maybe I don't want to be a writer, you know, and if I am going to be a writer, it's going to be either like on my friend's show or like on my own
Mhm.
show. But I was like, I don't think this has any value to me anymore, not realizing that something was actually boiling and bubbling and a
Yeah.
brewing
Yeah.
and that it was going to come to an end. So I'm glad that I followed my instinct of being like, let me step away from this shit.
Was there something that happened?
Yeah, there was a couple of job interviews that I was like, you're going to pay what? And you want me to commit how much time? Like, what?
And these were union? They had to
Some
be,
were
right?
and some weren't.
Oh,
Some
okay.
were and some weren't because with the streaming shit, because even with Bill Nye, they were like, "Oh yeah, we got picked up for a second season." So I wrote, I think on this. No, I wrote on the first season. No, what happened is they split it. They had like, "Oh yeah, we're doing 12 episodes." Oh, cool. That's like not bad, you know, for that kind of a show for a streamer. And then fucking they split it into 2 seasons. So it was like 6 episodes for the first season, 6 episodes for the second season. I was like furious because I was like, "What? That that's not okay. I know the money breakdown makes no fucking sense in that regard."
Wow.
So I was like at the tail end of money being good and as a writer and but also at the beginning of streaming getting worse for writers, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's
I
how it started. They started splitting up those. They would call it one season, then they would split it into 2. You get so fucked in that situation as a
I didn't
writer.
know that.
Yeah, and so when like in the last year when I was trying to get a writing job or interviewing for a writing job, I should say, I was like, I don't even want to fucking do this. Like, you know, I don't think I want to do this anymore. Like, what's the point of this? And also, I will also give you some hot, juicy goss. When I did work at Bill Nye, there was an executive who was such a dickhead. I actually got JFL New Faces that year, and they wouldn't let me go because I
Yeah.
had to be on set, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck this. And I honestly,
Yeah.
I'm so mad at myself because I remember thinking I should just fucking go. And I wish I had. I wish I fucking had.
You didn't
Because
go?
I didn't go. I didn't
Yeah.
go. And that's fucked
Did
up.
your reps tell you not to go?
No, my reps were like, "Oh, well, you know, we cannot encourage you to go." They were like, I cannot,
Yeah.
like, they were very much like, we don't think you should do that. But I was like, now I look back and I'm like, my reps aren't always looking out for my best
Yeah.
interests. You know, they're
Right.
looking out for their best interests. And that was also sobering.
Did you get to go the next year?
Nope. I've never been to JFL.
You've never been back again?
I've never been at all. I got it, and because I couldn't go, they were like, okay, well, you're not a new face. We're going to replace you.
Oh, wow. No, it's one of the things that like now I even before I interview for a job, I tell my reps, you know, these are the times that I'm going to want off. I'm going to want some flexibility. Like if I need to go do something, I need to be able to go do it.
Sure.
Like because I've had experiences in the past where you're so locked in for that time
Yeah.
that you really can't do anything else. And I just think it really, at least for me as a stand-up, it was something that was very difficult to get used to. And I don't think I
Yeah.
ever have, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of stand-ups, or not even a lot of just stand-ups, like I think a lot of writers have questioned whether or not they want to continue in the career in the last
Yeah.
few years. And I feel like it's something that's important to talk about because you can tell, like with all of us, like every writer I've talked to, not every writer, but I would say a good chunk of writers that I've talked to, you can tell that we're in a transitionary period because of the strike, because
Yeah.
we're post-pandemic, because we're post all these things. We're returning to the, like, it just still feels like we're emerging in other
Yeah.
in ways, you know? So it's just like, it's still hard to tell how things will settle. And I think it's really, really sobering that I'm not seeing as much bullshit as I saw a few years ago. Like as many like pretending like everything is perfect and that it's not a deeply flawed industry and a deeply
Sure.
flawed profession. You know, so it's just like it's going to be interesting to see how things
I
settle
agree.
down.
I
Yeah,
agree.
I don't know.
I am also interested in it, and it does feel like people are making big decisions
Yeah,
moving forward because they have to.
we have to.
They
Yeah.
have to.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's just important to just talk about the fact that everyone's feeling kind of like unmoored.
Yeah.
Everyone's feeling I just used a big word, everyone, so.
Speaking of the working writer.
But there is something that is going on too that's really positive is that even though everyone's feeling all of this like instability and not really knowing where we're all going to land, I feel like there's this straight up zen about it. Like there's this like acceptance that like, and I think it's because we've come through the pandemic. Like we just have to accept that we don't know what's going to happen and we just have to ride with it.
I would argue that the zen is coming from a place like it's almost like you're forcing it because you have to have faith that things are going to be okay.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
absolutely.
Like it's beyond the pandemic's influence. It's more like, do you believe in yourself or not? And that's why unions are important, right? Because they allow each other to give each other, like every person gives each other that extra boost of confidence. Like we're all holding hands, like we're all in this together. And I feel like that's a part of that zen feeling that some people are having where it's like, oh, it's been shitty for you too. Oh, it's been shitty for you. Oh, it's been shitty for you. Oh, bitch, it's been shitty for you too. Oh, okay. Because I really was like, when I stopped paying my union dues, I was like, I'm embarrassed, you know? Like, I don't want to talk about this with my, I'm really going to talk about this with Solomon Giorgio. Like, this motherfucker's writing on every fucking show ever. Like, I can't like be like, boo, I'm like really not feeling good about this, because I also don't want to seem like I'm begging for a job either, where it's like, that's where it gets tricky too in this industry when your homies are in the industry as well. Like, sometimes you can't vent without sounding like you're fucking trying to get something out of somebody,
Right. Or like you're not struggling, because that's another thing that's not allowed.
Yes, exactly.
Is struggling. Yes.
Yeah.
What does it look like for you to not continue to, like, I guess, quote unquote, be in the industry? Does that mean that you just you focus on stand up, you focus on your own work, you don't staff anymore?
It's more just like I'm still in a like what is the next chapter? I'm still very much, like I said earlier, in a transitional space, like mentally and physically as well. But I don't know. I'm not sure, and I think I just keep thinking like, I always think about how fun it was on At Midnight, when I would be a guest, because I got to invite all the homies to come help me write jokes and brainstorm, and like literally it would be like 6 of us, and sometimes, and not like all 6 people were like sitting there writing jokes. Some of us were just like talking shit and just there to eat snacks, and I loved that because that's how I
Yeah.
think that's how writers' rooms should be. That it's not like everyone should have to submit this, that, and the other. It's like, no, how do we get the best product? Like, what does that look like today with this group today? And sometimes it means 2 people fucking over contributing, and it looks like a couple of people not contributing at all because their just brain isn't like with the vibe of the humor, which is fucking fine because that's how
Yeah.
it should be. Um, but I always just think like, man, if I could replicate that experience and that environment and that feeling in the future, that's like ideal for me, to have like a nice little crew of like different background people, and we're all like the same goal, just write some funny shit that is like the best version of it being funny, because like, when you talk to people who are writers, it's like people are great at writing. Um, I just know that I love comedy. Like I just know that I love to figure out a joke and something that's funny, and like, an idea that's funny, and how do we expand on it? Like the science of comedy is what I love. And so when I can like really facilitate that, or be with people that'll help facilitate that, it's like fucking the best. Like I always think about when I would be a guest on At Midnight, like that's like, to me, would be the best, to be with my homies. We're just talking shit, and then we go out, we record something, and like the recording is like not even the funnest part of the day. The funnest part of the day was being in the little green room space and making each other laugh and eating and drinking and just having a good time.
I don't know if it feels like there's room for that in the industry that has developed over the last few years.
I
Like it
know.
just feels like everything is like microwaved.
I
Everything needs to
know.
come out lickety split in
Yeah.
half the cost, half the time.
Yeah.
So
And that
it
sucks.
almost wonders like, are we? Yeah, again, it's like I really don't know how it's going to land, but I love your hope of what it looks like.
Well, I will also argue that if I could assume that there's a writer's room that does that, it's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I have a feeling that they are doing that exact thing, where like they really are just in the writer's room list, like coming up with the goofiest, silliest, stupidest shit that they find funny, and then like shooting it is like the cherry on top.
Well, that's how it started. Did you see their original pilot? Like they shot it themselves and it's just like Mac in his underwear.
Yeah,
I forgot what the joke of it was, but it was just like a little short that they made and that's how they got a show. They just
it's
made this like
wild.
home video. It looks like
But
shit.
that's like
But it's
the
funny.
truth of the
Yeah.
matter. The truth of the matter
Yeah.
is, you give actual artists, creatives, people who like to do and that be creative and make art,
Yeah.
you're gonna get a great fucking product. The problem is people
Yeah.
be fucking coming in and fucking putting their fucking 2 cents in, making it worse, like not understanding humor. Like I
Right.
remember having to like fight with people at Bill Nye, like having to explain jokes because these people are old fucks who like don't understand that like your humor is valid, like your perspective
Right.
is valid, and like I'm not going to sit here and fucking argue with these old
Right.
motherfuckers about what is funny. Like they're so fucking old. Why the fuck would they know? And why do I have to
Right.
argue with you about what's funny? Like that's what I don't like. It's gotten so competitive in the writers room as well.
But the thing is, it's not, it's like they want artists, but it's not art, it's a
Yeah,
business. So it's like they're fitting artists into this, mold of like, and what they're after is not what we're after. We're after the joke,
sure.
we're after the most fun, we're after the most inventive, but they're after this is what works for money. This is what
Sure,
works,
but
you
we could
know?
also argue that especially with the streaming, they've been putting money into almost anything. They actually don't know how to look for the best anymore. They just
Yeah,
know they have to look for the boxes that need to be checked. We need to get this type of show and this
right.
style and this, and it has to have this. Like they're
Yeah.
which is like fine in the sense of like I understand that there's a business structure to all this. But if they actually pursued the like Quinta is such a great example of someone who's actually fucking great at what she does, been great at what she does. There's no denying what she does. You can watch her live and you can see what she does.
Mm-hmm.
God bless them for letting her have as much freedom as she had, that she was able to do what she needed to do. Because imagine if they hadn't. Imagine if they had been like, okay, but you can write it and you can star in it, but you have no say in casting. Fucked.
Mm-hmm.
That's fucked.
Yeah.
You have to
You wouldn't
give
have gotten Janelle.
You wouldn't have gotten fucking Cheryl Lee Ralph. You wouldn't have gotten.
I don't think you would have gotten these people.
Yeah, no, and because Quinta did, she's talked about like, no. I knew I was like actively pursuing certain personalities, and I wanted these people, and I wanted it to work, and I wanted it to blend, and I wanted them to be able to play off each other. Like, she fucking put so much care and concern in that show. Can you imagine if an executive was like, no, she doesn't have any fucking say in this because who the fuck are you? Because that's what happens,
Well, you know what? The thing is, like, whenever shows like Quinta's happen, I'm always like, what miracle needed to happen to make this shit happen? Because that means she had to have the right reps. They had to bring in the right showrunner. They had to like have the right partners at the studio.
Yep.
Like, the executives had to be on board. Like, an executive can't leave and then a new executive come, because then that executive is going to want to wipe out the old executive slate. And it's just like, literally everything has to go perfectly right for a show to be decent, I feel.
On top of that, Quinta has to be on her best behavior at every single
100%.
meeting. You know what I mean?
100%.
Like,
100%.
there's like, I have to give it up to her because me and her do not have the same personality, so I will never achieve what she achieves, because it takes a certain type of person to navigate this industry and to achieve and get to that level. It's hard.
It does. It's super, super hard. Mad respect. So I don't know what Bruja magic had to happen for that show.
But something happened.
I remember I got hired for like a kids and family show because it was like two Black sister witches that they wanted to have, like these little 11-year-old like witches, and they were like, these girls are Black, we want Black writers, and they liked my voice and things like that. And I think at the time I was like a co-producer level in the writer's room. So that's like beneath supervising producer, it's beneath executive producer, beneath showrunner, essentially. So I was like third, below showrunner.
Sure.
And they were very sweet, amazingly sweet, but then they hired a showrunner. They wanted to hire a showrunner to supervise me, and I brought my Black friend on as well, because she's really into like witchcraft and like in the most like hilarious way, in the most like modern girl way.
You get a resource to tap into.
Exactly. And she's funny, and she's a writing partner that I love. So I brought her on, and then but then they wanted people with more experience. So they brought on a showrunner, a man, and he brought on two other people because he didn't feel comfortable being the man running this show about little Black girls. And so he brought on two other white people, a writing team. One was a woman, one was a man. So he actually he doubled the amount of men. And so now there's 3 white people above us on this show that they hired
about
for us
Black
to be
witches.
About Black witches that they wanted us to essentially helm. And it was just like, was there nobody else that could have, and these people were fantastic. That is not the point. It's not the point about like whether or not they could do the job, but it just felt like, now there's 2 of us, there's 3 white people, they're the showrunners, there's a power imbalance.
Sure.
Like I genuinely feel like it has to be very, very thoughtfully done. Like when you're trying to like balance things in the writer's room, when you're trying to balance power, when you're trying to like have a Black show and then also make the behind the scenes people match that,
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's an interesting journey.
It's an interesting journey, and it is, and then that those frustrations that come with that, just it kind of taint the show a little bit. Like there's no way that it doesn't
it ended up not
get in it.
bought.
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course
it
it
ended up
didn't,
not going
because they
forward.
made a lot
Yeah.
of mistakes, you know?
Yeah.
They made a lot of
And I think
mistakes.
they
That's what
also did not
happens.
know what they wanted. I think they really ultimately didn't know what they wanted. That's another reason why I think Abbott is like, it's like any show that works and is a hit is a miracle, because
Yeah.
there's just
Well,
so many ways it could fall
what
apart.
that was what I just said, though, is that these networks, executives, whomever, they go in and they just go, let me check this box. Okay, they're witches and they're black and they're young girls. Like
Yeah.
that's as far as they go. But it's like they don't like you tapping into someone who's into brujeria and is black and is funny. Like, oh my God, what a fucking gold mine, right? But
Right.
then they're like,
Yeah.
wait, but who is she? And like, why don't we get other people in here? If she's going to bring in someone, I'm going to bring in someone. Like, and it's just like, bro, whoa, I wasn't trying to be competitive. I was trying to make a great show. And that's where it gets fucking tricky. That's why this shit fails.
It fails. It fails a lot. But I don't know. I mean, we carry on, no? Like I personally have no other, I have no other choice. I feel like I don't think I can return to office world, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight like hell, basically, to like not have to return to an office job. So
I think I'm going to go be a local DJ at a radio show.
You can roast everyone that calls in. That'll be fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
Well, thank you, Marcella Arguello, for coming to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me force. Yeah. Thank you for letting me Bill Cosby myself onto this show.
No, don't say that. No.
I forced myself onto this show.
No. All right. We're going to end with that.
I hope you enjoyed that episode, and I hope you got a lot out of it, especially the importance of being yourself. That's all I got for now. Until next time, get out there, get to work. There's no way I could do this podcast alone. I wanted to give a big shout out and thank you to our editor, Justin Asher, and to our other production assistants, Jemima Lariston, Maya Racole, and Nicole Edwards.